Hello?
Okay, there you are. Can you hear me okay?
Yes,
Okay, say yes again.
I hear you just fine.
Ooh, wow, you're loud. Okay, say you hear me just fine one more time.
I hear you just fine.
One more time.
I hear you just fine.
Okay, yeah. All right, so let's get going. Explain to me what it is you think. Have you heard that clip that I was talking about? Yes or no?
No.
Okay, good. Okay, so tell me what it is you think I was asking you before we get into it.
I think you were asking me if it's possible to plant a seed in someone's head of some type of prejudice or predisposition someone might have about you before they ever meet you. In this case, it had to be some type of body dysphoria, like a scar on the face, if somebody might be, um, have something, a judgment about somebody with a scarring issue
Okay.
on their face.
All right. I think I'm going to have another guest, but I just kind of wanted to test the waters, with you and your thoughts about it. I'm going to actually play the clip, and then I want you to tell me what you think of the clip. Okay. I have a direction I'm going, but I just kind of want you to follow along with me if you can. So I'm going to play the clips. If you can hear if you can't hear this, hold on. Okay, I'm gonna try to lean in a little closer because I'm playing it from a device that...
They did an experiment with a group of women, and they put scars on their faces, and they told these women that they're going into a job interview, and the purpose of the experiment is to find out whether people with facial disfigurements face discrimination. They showed them the scars in the mirror. The women saw themselves with these scars, and as they led them out of the room, they said, we're just going to touch it up a little bit. And as they touched it up, they removed the scarring completely. So the women went into the job interview thinking that they are scarred, but actually being their normal selves. And the result of the experiment is that those women then came back reporting massively increased level of discrimination. Indeed, many of them came back with comments that the interviewer had made that they felt were referencing their facial disfigurements. And this is why I think this ideology of victimhood is so dangerous, because if you preach to people constantly that we're all oppressed, then that primes people to look for that. They did an experiment with a group of women, and they put scars on them.
Okay, it's starting over. Did you get the gist of what just happened?
Yes.
Okay, is it what you thought it was? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, so what are your thoughts? Just tell me what your thoughts are about that before I move on into the next segment.
My thought is that the idea that you could place a seed of doubt or an idea of discrimination in someone's head would give them an excuse why something may or may not happen, or would give them a predisposition to look for that discrimination before they ever walked in that room.
Okay, so that's your thoughts about that particular clip that you just heard? What are your thoughts about that particular clip?
Well, I would think that a beautiful woman would think that she would probably lean into her looks and think that that was maybe something that was an advantage to her.
Okay, I'm sorry. Could you
However,
repeat the last two things? Because I had a glitch. So please repeat that.
So I would think that the idea that these were beautiful women may have leaned into the idea that these type of women leaned on their looks for getting a position. You know, they're beautiful women. Now they put a scar on their face. They're thinking that this is going to impact their ability to get this job. The scar is there, or they think it's there. Now it's, is it real or imagined that this has actually happened? Well, they believed it to be true. The seed was planted in their mind. So they had a mindset going in that this was going to happen.
Okay.
When in reality, it really had no bearing whatsoever on them getting the job.
Okay. So what do you think of that particular experiment?
I think it kind of validates the idea that you can give a person an idea or plant an idea in their head that something's going to happen, and depending on the confidence or the structure of that person, their own self-confidence, they might believe it. They might believe in that victimization.
Okay, I'm focusing on the word. I'm focusing on the word you said, validate. What does it validate?
Say that again, please.
I'm focusing on the word validate. You said this experiment validates, and then you went on. I want clarity on exactly what you're saying that it validates.
That it validated the idea that you could plant a seed in somebody's head that something's going to happen, or an excuse in their head that they're going to be victimized, and they believed it to be true before they even walked in that room and looked for those reasons.
Okay, that's fine. So tell me this. I want you to use your brain real good now, okay? Give me another example. Now, this was an experiment that whoever did the experiment did. And as you said, it validates what you just said, and it does make sense. Can you come up with any other kind of example as to how this could very well be so the case? Anything at all? I'm going to give you a few seconds to think of another example of how something like this can be true, or it could validate something. Go ahead. First thing that pops into your head.
Well, I think racism happens. Racism comes into mind. Maybe even white privilege could come to mind when I'm not thinking about something like that. Those are the kinds of things popping into my head at this moment.
Okay, well, it's the very first thing that popped into my head, and I want to share a response, with an interaction that I had with another one of my viewers/listeners. So I shared my thoughts about this, and then I got response from it. And I'm going to tell you what my response was. I said, although this example is totally made up, it is interesting. And then one of my viewers said, why do you think it's made up? And they said, just curious. Okay, so then I'm going to share with you what my response was. But I want your response on my thoughts of it being made up. What do you think of my thoughts of this scenario being made up?
I think it plants a seed that when you're doing some type of research, you have to figure out how you can establish a mindset for somebody, an excuse for someone. And you can plant that seed, and you can bombard that person day in and day out with that idea until they actually believe it.
Okay, so here's my direct question, though. I want to know what your thoughts are in regards to, because my viewer wants to know, why do I think it's made up? Why do you think it's made up? And I want you to tell me what are your thoughts about me thinking it's made up?
Well, in this case, there was no real scar on anybody's face before or after. They imagined that there was. So the seed that was planted made them believe that there was a built-in excuse for not getting the job.
I don't think you understand what I'm asking you, and if you do, I apologize I don't mean to insult you, but let me try to reiterate what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say that this whole thing that we just listened to, where this guy made this comment and told this scenario, he explained this study. Okay? What I'm saying is, I think this specific and particular study is made up. What I'm saying is, I think this specific and particular study is made up.
Oh,
I think
okay.
the
Now I
study is made up.
understand.
So now tell me what you think of my thoughts about this study being made up.
All right. Let me change my perspective now. Why do I think you believe it's
No,
made up?
not necessarily why you think I believe. Listen carefully to the question. What do you think of my statement? I think it's made up. What do you think of my thoughts of it being made up? Because this was a guy that was clearly on social media who shared this experience, and he was making a point. And you just said, just like he said, it validated a thought. Yeah, I focused on your word validate, and that's cool. So you're saying, okay, it validates exactly pretty much what he was driving at. So I'm coming away saying that it's made up. And I want you to now tell me, what are your thoughts about my idea that this scenario is made up? It's not a trick question. Just go. You don't have to prepare or embrace. Just tell me your thoughts. First thing that pops into your head.
First of all, it was presented to me as if it was real. Now you're saying that it could be made up.
This is just me because, okay, hold on. Listen carefully to me. I don't want you to think it's not real just because I don't think it's real. You were impressed by it. Not so much impressed, but you thought it was a real study. It seemed like a real study and it made sense. You even said it validates, what you went on to say it validate. So now I'm saying I think it's made up. So again, what do you think of my thoughts that it is made up? Just, you don't have to think your way through this. There's no, I am getting somewhere, but I just want your thoughts. First thing that pops into your head. Don't try to plan your way through what you think I'm going to say. Judge Judy would say, don't try to, I'm always one step ahead of you, and I'm not trying to be a step ahead of you.
Well, I guess you were just very skeptical of the whole thing. And you were suspicious that anything like this could actually have been set up and done.
Okay.
That it was made up.
I know. So what does it say about me? What are your thoughts about me thinking that? Because the average person would see something like this on social media with a well-spoken, someone and talking about a study and how it clearly validates, it totally fits what he's saying and it makes sense. If this does not seem like something that could not be possible. So clearly you felt like it validated something because you agreed with it. But when you heard this, nowhere in your head you thought it was made up or not a true study, correct?
True.
Okay.
So
now
I became a gullible listener to this study, and you did not. You came away thinking that it was made up. So you were much deeper, more discerning about the scenario than I was. I just took it for face value.
Yeah, like most people do. And there's nothing wrong with that. You're not good, bad, or ugly because of it, and I'm not better, best, or better, or whatever, because of my thoughts. So again, I want, for the final time, you tell me, what are your thoughts about me thinking that whole scenario thing is made up? Because here's my response. My response says this exactly. Listen to what I say specifically and exactly. Oh boy, I hope I can find it now. Oh man, I hope I didn't lose it. Oh no, oh no, oh no. Where is it? Why is this on my... Oh man, I think I lost it. No, I couldn't have lost it. Impossible to lose. Okay, I found it. Here's my direct response. It says, although this example is totally made up, it's interesting. And then I ask the question, no. Okay, so let me then go on. Because then my listener, my viewer said, why do I think it's made up? Would you like to know what my response was?
Yes.
Good. Glad you asked. Now I've got to find it. Oh God, I hope I didn't lose it. Okay, here's what I said exactly, and I'm going to almost read it verbatim. Listen carefully. Are you listening? Can you hear me well?
Yes, yes.
Okay. I don't know it for sure, meaning I don't know that it's made up. So I'm saying I don't know for sure, but there are many reasons as to why I think it is. So pardon my confident response. My confident response was, it's totally made up. And that was my belief. So I don't know that it is, and I don't want to go back and change, my response, but I'm clarifying it right now. So I really believe it is, so much so that I actually said it. So now I'm clarifying. So now that that's out of the way, I'm going to now move on. So I said, pardon my confident response. I could also discuss it in length at your convenience. That's the next interview that I'm going to have with the next person outside of you. But the short answer is what I said. Okay, here's the meat of what I'm about to say. The short answer is no woman that I know or have known would not see what she looks like prior to walking outside, let alone an interview. It just doesn't seem sensible. Also, it's a direct counter to racial discrimination, which lately seems to be up for the old non-existence award. This type of behavior indeed could exist in those who likely lack confidence in themselves, but I would like the details of this particular study, and to hear it directly from the participants. In the words of my favorite Judge Judy, if something doesn't sound right, it probably isn't true. Sometimes proof and evidence is necessary. In changing the subject a little, I asked my then viewer, do you believe racial discrimination exists in American society? And then I just wanted a yes or no from them. So I know everything I said might have been convoluted. Did you understand it, or do I need to read it all again without interruptions?
No, you don't need to read it again.
Okay. So my response was, I think it's a direct counter to racial discrimination, which some people are now saying racial discrimination is just all in the minds of people who feel and or believe they are discriminated against. So many people, particularly those that look like me, sometimes we feel racial discrimination, particularly in America and in society, by certain things that have happened to our ancestors and or to us. And it's just something that, well, you can explain it. Some people can explain it better, but it's just something that I think is something made up to have something that seems concrete to counter the claim and or complaint of racial discrimination. And my question to you, this is a yes or no. Do you believe racial discrimination exists in American society, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, so now I'm going to let you have your closing thoughts on why I thought it was made up, why I think it is a load of horse poop, and how whoever this person is that said that, is someone who probably believes that racial discrimination is non-existence. Because I just, acknowledged something a few weeks ago as to where many people were saying that, oh no, it's not, that everybody has a fair chance. And just because of the color of your skin or your racial background, for whatever reason, there is no discrimination. And many people have not. I have not experienced that as a, person who looks like me, have not experienced that in cases where I know of many people who have and many people who actually do. And I can say that I have experienced it throughout my life, and I still feel it now. Part of it is subconscious, and I can differentiate, hopefully I'm saying that right, which part is, probably an over exaggeration of my insecurities maybe. But I do believe it exists, and you can't say it doesn't exist just because, you have a study that's probably fake. And I believe it's fake. Again, if it's not fake, I will totally stand corrected. but I would like to see that study. I would like to see these women, and I would like to hear from them. But you as a woman yourself, how many times have you gone outside without looking in the mirror in public? Tell me, how many times have you done that in your life?
Probably near zero.
Thank you. My point exactly. And again, that's where I'm going to leave it. I'm going to let you have closing thoughts. So go ahead on whatever your thoughts are at this point.
Well, I think your premise on the gullibility of somebody listening to that is fair, because it doesn't seem like a beautiful woman could be led to believe that she has a scar in her face, and then they remove the scar, and then she's now given a reason to not get a job. I think beautiful women probably rely on their looks, know what they look like when they go inside, and lean on that. So for me, now that you brought it to my attention, I think it's probably gullible. You saw through the whole thing, and it probably is a gullible way of looking at how a woman might allow herself to be led to believe something other than who she really is. It also speaks to the confidence of a human being. So now that you bring it to my attention, it probably is unbelievable. But the truth is, many people are gullible, and the social media kind of relies on that to get an audience, to get people to think, feel, and believe a certain thing. So I appreciate your discernment in this case, and to make people look at it a little closer.
And I thought about it. I played that out in my head. I'm thinking of some of the most beautiful women that I've ever seen in my life going through this experiment and walking into a place, and then some makeup artist. I know on TV you can make someone look a certain way, and then makeup can really do some things. There's some makeup artists that are great, so I'm not doubting that. But to be sitting in a room in an interview, I think if I'm looking at someone, I could see makeup. And if you put enough makeup on me to make me believe or think that I am disfigured in some kind of way, and then you tell me just before I go into an interview that you're gonna touch it up and then you totally remove it, okay, really? I mean, what kind of nut am I going to believe that something you could put on to make me believe that I am disfigured is now going to be now totally removed in a touch-up process, and then I'm not going to want to see what I look like before I go into the interview? It just doesn't make sense, and it doesn't sound like it makes sense. And like I like to quote Judge Judy, if it doesn't sound right, it doesn't make sense. And it's okay. It's normal to want to question something like that. And sometimes things like that, again, if you just hear that, first thing you think of is, okay, it's on social media. It's, the video is good. Everything sounds good. You got an intelligent person saying it. It sounds like a study that someone can do, and it could be true. But it's a load of crock, and we ought to be a little more careful. And again, as far as I'm concerned, I'm not going to say that I am just, treated like my ancestors, whipped and beaten and sold off and, just called the N-word all in public and just, had my family sold off. I'm not saying that, I was treated like former slaves, but the residue of slavery and the effects of slavery through racial discrimination does exist. Many people that look like me do feel it. We experience it. And me personally, I don't like to talk about it too much because I don't want to be accused of, being a victim. So I don't say anything. I just have to hide it and cry in silence and then just try to work a little extra hard to prove myself in other ways. But I do believe it exists. I've heard of it. I've seen it. I've experienced it in many ways myself. And I don't like it when someone comes after it that way with a load of crock such as this to try to counter it. So my response, and to my next guest that I hope does, allow me to have the interview, I will have a conversation similar to this, because now I would like to know why this person is questioning, why they're curious as to why I believe it's all made up. Because someone that really wants to believe that really has like a touche. Yeah, it's great. This is a great study, and it does prove that people who are complaining about anything, and let me just go on just a little extra mile, I'm going to talk about body shaming, being a person, and I don't mind, it's something that I have, dealt with the challenges of, people that are overweight. There is body discrimination. There have been people who have looked me over because of my size, not just in a bad way. As big as of a man that as I am, people have responded based on my size and what I look like, size alone. So the color of my skin, my ethnic background, particularly the history in America in particular, does have some residue on it. And racial discrimination does exist. And of course, there are some people who play the victim all the time about many things. We're not talking about those. Racial discrimination is serious, and I just don't appreciate someone trying to downplay it in any facet. So if I'm wrong, then I will apologize in advance. I'm just calling this the way I see it, and I find it to be, a little exaggerated, and that's where I'm going to leave it. Really, you can have the last closing words, and then I'm just going to go on.
Well, it does sound far-fetched. It does send a message that makes it sound like that somebody is using a real or imagined technique to try to draw attention to planting an idea in someone's head. So I don't think it's a good example of racial discrimination if that's what they were trying to parallel.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to let you go. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it, right?
I appreciate you too, and thanks for letting me weigh in on this topic.
Awesome. All right, we'll talk later. I appreciate you. Have a fantastic evening.
All right.
All right.
You too.
Okay, bye.
Good night.
Well, there you have it. Another one. Hopefully I'll have one coming up after this, but I just wanted to, again, I always say I'm going to give my guest the last word, but I'm going to close, or I'm going to close and give them the last word, whatever. This touched me in a place that caused me to want to respond. I see things like this all the time. We have to be smart. People will do things and say things, particularly if they can raise doubt. And that's all you have to do in a lot of cases is just raise doubt. Then you have to go through, bringing forth the information and the evidence. I'm not saying it's not true, but then this is the information and evidence that I definitely would want to see, because you have to be careful, not to fall for something just because someone is playing it up in a certain way. And, until you've had it done to you, maybe you wouldn't be as sensitive to it. I'm all about finding the truth and exposing the truth and revealing, the truth, as well as exposing lies, So yeah, I've got a little soft spot, for people who over-exaggerate things unnecessarily, just to create some mess, as my mama would say. Anyway, that's where I'm going to leave it. Have a good evening. Thank you so much.